You are welcome to Tuga Media TV. Please subscribe for more video. This video shows some of the worst hyperinflations in the world. Imagine waking up one morning to discover that everything you've saved, money that could have bought a house yesterday, can barely buy a loaf of bread today. Your paycheck? Worthless by the time it hits your account. People hauling stacks of cash in wheelbarrows just to buy groceries. This isn't fiction. This is hyperinflation. And it's happened far more often than most people realize. We like to think of money as stable, as something reliable. But history tells a different story. Some of the worst hyperinflations didn't just wreck economies, they brought down entire governments, tore apart families, and dismantled civilizations. These financial infernos spread like wildfires, revealing how fragile the systems we rely on truly are. You're about to walk through the stories of 5 real countries whose currencies collapsed and what it cost them. As you listen, remember, inflation doesn't shout at first. It sneaks in quietly. It whispers. And by the time people hear the roar, it's too late. Chapter per quart. Case 1. Germany, 1923. The Weimar Republic. Post-World War I, Germany was drowning in debt. The Treaty of Versailles demanded reparations totaling 132 billion gold marks, an impossible sum. So what did the government do? It printed money to try to cover the costs. At first, inflation rose gradually. Then it spiraled out of control. Prices doubled, then doubled again. By November 1923, the German mark was essentially worthless. A loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. People used banknotes as fuel. Children played with stacks of currency like building blocks. Savings evaporated overnight. But the real damage wasn't just financial. It was psychological. The collapse of the currency shattered trust. And once a society loses faith in its money, the entire system crumbles. Commerce, contracts, salaries, all of it. That chaos opened the door for extremist movements, and within a decade, Adolf Hitler rose to power, economic collapse having paved his path. Case 2. Zimbabwe, 2000s. Fast forward to Southern Africa. In the early 2000s, under President Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe's economy began to unravel. Land seizures crippled agriculture, and the government responded by printing money. Hyperinflation kicked in. By 2008, prices were doubling every 24 hours. Zimbabwe's inflation rate hit a staggering 179.6 billion%. The government kept adding zeros, 10 million, 100 billion, $100 trillion notes. Eventually, they gave up and abandoned their currency altogether, switching to foreign currencies like the US dollar and South African rand. The cost? Not just a failed currency, but a nation of pensioners who lost everything, industries that collapsed, and millions of citizens forced to flee. Real assets, like land, skills, and tangible resources, were the only things that retained value. Case 3. Hungary, 1946. This was perhaps the worst case in recorded history. After World War II, Hungary was devastated. To cover its war expenses and rebuild, the government unleashed the printing presses. They issued a currency called the pengo, then kept inflating it until prices were doubling every 15 hours. The inflation rate reached 41.9 quadrillion%. A 4, followed by warning 16 zeros. Soro. They tried introducing higher denominations. The milpengo, then the B-pengo. It didn't work. Eventually, the currency was scrapped entirely. The economic destruction wiped out Hungary's middle class, erased all savings, and shattered the government's legitimacy. It wasn't just economic reset, it was a complete deletion of the past. Case 4. Venezuela, 2010's present. Oil-rich yet broken from within, years of mismanagement, corruption, and aggressive money printing turned one of Latin America's wealthiest nations into an economic cautionary tale. To cover deficits and failing programs, the Venezuelan government flooded the economy with currency. By 2018, inflation passed. into 1,000%. Salaries lost value daily. Supermarkets sat empty. Barter systems returned. Professionals fled to neighboring countries, taking jobs far below their skill level just to survive. Eventually, Venezuela tried slashing 6 zeros off its currency. But the damage was done. The healthcare system collapsed. The economy crumbled. Millions became migrants. And again, those who owned hard assets or had access to foreign currency were the only ones who made it through. Count 5. Yugoslavia, 1990s. As the country fractured during the fall of the Soviet bloc, its economy collapsed under war, sanctions, and leadership failure. In 1993, monthly inflation hit 313 million%. Prices doubled every 1.4 days. The government kept introducing new currencies, each more worthless than the last. People turned to German marks and US dollars just to survive. Eventually, the official currency became a national joke, used more for wallpaper and fire kindling than trade. Over and over, the same cycle played out. Crisis, printing, collapse, and social breakdown. Different places, different decades. Same mistake. You might think, that's history. We've learned from it. But have we? The modern warning. Global debt today is at all-time highs. The U.S. alone owes over $34 trillion. Central banks around the world have printed trillions to stimulate markets, suppress interest rates, and delay downturns. And for a while, it worked. Inflation stayed low. Growth continued until it didn't. In 2021 and 2022, the dam cracked. Supply chain disruptions, war in Ukraine, rising energy costs, and yes, years of unchecked money printing caught up. Inflation surged, interest rates had to be hiked fast, markets wobbled, and suddenly, regular people started feeling the pressure. Rents climbed, groceries cost more, wages fell behind, and once again, people began asking, what is money? Who really controls it? What happens when trust disappears? We're not in hyperinflation yet. But the symptoms are familiar, the belief that printing money solves real problems, that we can borrow endlessly, that central banks can always clean up the mess. History shows those are dangerous assumptions. This time is different. Or is it? What makes today's risk more dangerous is on scale. Never before has the entire global economy been this interconnected, this reliant on central banks, and this deep in debt. If trust falters now, the fallout won't be contained to one country. It could be global. So what can you do? You might not run a central bank, but you can manage your own exposure, your own savings, your own mindset. 3 lessons from history's worst hyperinflations. 1. Wealth isn't paper, it's purchasing power. Real wealth lies in assets, land, skills, resources, strong networks, and personal resilience. Every country that saw hyperinflation watched printed money vanish. Those with tangible value endured. 2. Trust is the cornerstone. Currencies fail not because ink fades, but because belief does. When people stop believing in money's worth, collapse is swift and hard to reverse. 3. Inflation punishes the unprepared. It comes fast, it compounds, and it hits the paycheck-to-paycheck population hardest. Governments can inflate away debt. You can't inflate away your rent. That's why financial literacy isn't just about getting rich, it's about not getting wiped out. So how do you protect yourself? Understand the system. Don't blindly trust it. Minimize high-risk debt. Diversify, not just across stocks, but across systems. Consider real assets. Learn skills that retain value, no matter what the economy does. Build a lifestyle that's less vulnerable to rising costs. Above all, remember that inflation is a silent thief, a slow erosion of your financial freedom. The only defense is awareness and preparation. The 5 worst hyperinflations in history weren't flukes. They were the result of bad policies, denial, war, and the belief that money can be created without cost. Now you've seen the pattern, so next time someone says, "That could never happen here," you'll know how to respond. Because if we don't learn from history, we won't just repeat it, we'll be crushed by it. Have a wonderful day.